Hello, and welcome to Wires from the Deep, a Silo podcast. Today is Saturday, May 6, 2023, and you're listening to episode 4, Only Murders in the Silo. I am your host, Crystal, here with my co host, Kelly.
Hey everyone.
And today we are joined by our first guest, Angela Traficante. She was one of the people who did the Through the Pages feature on the Down Deep. So she was the one who provided the fresh to the book perspective. Say hi, Angela.
Hey guys, what's up?
Okay, so we just got through talking about the first episode, so we're going to be using this episode to talk about the second episode, but just to explain that we can talk about anything that we've seen thus far. We don't have to limit it just to episode 2, but that's kind of like the focus. But we can obviously go back and touch on things from before if it ties into the one we're doing now. So, but one of the things I wanted to ask you, Angela, was we talked a bit about how the scale of the silo is like really big, and so I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was a little surprised in the first episode and the second episode seeing the sheer size of everything. And I don't just mean like how big it is, because obviously we all know it's deep, but like the breadth and spaciousness of it, because I definitely was thinking that it would be way more cramped, way more
Mm,
tight, way more claustrophobic.
like
Well,
I
when I think
guess.
of a grain silo, I always think of, I don't know, you see movies where, there's a grain silo where people are like struggling and falling in the grain, and it's very cramped and claustrophobic. So,
Yeah.
even if you try to imagine it like much bigger than that, I think that's still a lot smaller than what they've accomplished. So,
Yeah,
and
some of it I'm sure is for filming purposes too, of course.
sure,
But
of
yeah, like
course.
sometimes I saw their sweeping open shots, like especially of the hydroponic plants and stuff, and I was
Mm,
like, wow, there's a lot of space.
Well, just skipping
yeah.
to the end of the episode, which I guess I'm allowed to do, the machine or the robot or the spidery type thing that they have down there that allegedly like dug the silo out even looked too small to, I guess I don't know like in what way it moved, but
No, I mean, I think it looked, I mean, to me, it looked really big because they show them like looking down on it. So it doesn't, I mean, it's hard to tell the scale then, but then when
I
they're
suppose.
standing down below it, it's pretty huge, right? Like
I remember the
he's
cavern being huge, but
yeah, they had, oh God, I had a hard time when they were scaling the wall.
me too. I hate that. I hate that. Hold, like climbing down a ladder like that. No, that's
Yeah,
just a big no for me.
I'm out.
Even when they were standing at the edge, like pulling up the
Yeah,
the bag, I was the same way. I was like, oh no, please back off.
yeah.
Yeah, like when she's following the string, I'm like, Dove, can you like tie yourself off, please?
It was almost like she was doing it in the most nonchalant way, and I was like, actually, you have that big rope, like you could probably have figured something out where you're not just like tiptoeing to the edge. But everyone's different. It takes all sorts, right?
Yeah. I mean, she has her fear of water. We obviously have fear of heights, so
But okay, fear of water, is that like a silo thing? Like because there is no like
I
water,
mean,
like
I
swimming
I
pool,
kind of
ocean,
I
lake?
hadn't really thought about it before, but I'm guessing maybe they just have to keep all their water and they don't have enough to be able to like have swimming pools and stuff like that. So,
Right, but
Yeah,
I mean, like she would have like grown up, never even have like having experienced being submerged in water. Where would she have done that?
yeah, and when you think about it, like also just from a learning perspective, yeah, why would you learn to swim when you could put that
yeah.
energy towards something else?
There,
So I imagine
Yeah.
it would be quite scary to think of a giant body of water.
yeah, I don't. Where
Although
would they have
actually,
lived?
since she has a fear of water and like all what you just said, it was like they wouldn't have seen a big body of water. Like when like she's like hanging above that. I like how we're just
Yeah,
skipping to the
no,
end, but like
yeah.
she's like over that giant pond of water, and I kind of just thought that she would just be confused at what she was looking at because when I was looking at it, I was
Especially
like,
because the light was gone.
yeah. It just was it was weird. I didn't know it was water at first. I was like, why is it like shimmering like that? I thought it was
Yeah.
metal or something. So I don't know.
Also, dark water, and you don't even know what's in there. Man, there could have been.
Yeah, actually, what I was thinking about at that part is I used to play this game called EverQuest, and I was what's called a tank, where you're like the big strong character and you get like shoved in first. And so there used to be this dungeon where there was this big like tunnel, like vertical tunnel And I had to go down there and pull the monster we were gonna kill and bring it back up so that we could fight it. And it was just like that. It was just a game, but it was super scary for me. I used to hate doing that. But
How old
that's
were
what
you?
in college.
Hmm.
But it was scary. But yeah, that's what it reminded me of when she's going down and it's dark and she can't see anything and yeah, ugh, don't like that.
He would have had no idea what like water looks like with like light reflecting off of it. That would have been like completely new to her. I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny to think about that too, because like I was thinking the same thing also, like for a moment, harkening back to the first episode when Allison's like, and there were things flying in the sky. And I was like, yeah, of course you would say that, because like you don't, you mean you might
Birds.
know conceptually what a bird
Right.
is, but like you certainly wouldn't know what types of birds are or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. So the fear of water thing, I don't think she has a fear of water in the book. So that's not something I recall. So okay, so I we forgot to talk about this, Kelly, in the previous episode, but I wanted to Angela's not gonna really like this, but I want to talk about the title sequence. She's Kelly, do you watch the title sequence?
I mean, I only watched it the first episode, and I made my little note, which I mentioned
Same,
to
Uh,
I
you.
only watched
okay.
it the
Oh
first
my
episode.
god.
We
I
hit
don't
that
I
skip
always, I
button very
always skip
quickly.
them. Yeah, I always
why
skip
why
them.
am I friends with you both?
I don't know.
Anyway,
Every 10 years.
I I really like title sequences because I like the music and I like the images. But I really liked the title sequence for this show because it's got a lot of imagery in it. Just like the one that I like in particular is how at some point you can see like little light shadows of people like crawling up and down the stairs. And then there's like a DNA
I saw the
helix
yeah,
and
I
stuff.
saw that. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's like it's got a lot of imagery in it. And I think you had mentioned something about an apple.
yeah. I grew up in Missouri from a very like Free Will Baptist background, so like it was obvious for me. I saw the apple like falling, and it just seemed very like it was like a religious sort of symbolism, but I have no idea. But then there was also in the first episode when she dug that thing out the birth control out of
Yeah, the
her
apple is
side,
on
there
the
was like the
table.
apple on the plate. So I don't know.
Certainly,
I
I
saw
think the knowledge, the apple, like I think they
Yeah,
were definitely going for that.
I think so.
I saw somebody in the fan group joke that it's product placement.
For apple.
But yeah, I really liked it, and I think the first time I watched it, I was actually really just happy for Hugh because saw his name in the credits, and I was like, oh, he's been waiting a long time for that, so that was kind of cool.
I did the same thing, and in like my mind, I was like, I always do that thing where I'm like, oh, someday maybe that would be my name.
Okay, so let's move on to because the episode opens with Holston's cleaning, which began in the first episode when he said he wanted to go outside, and then they flash back to Allison and how this is 3 years later after she's gone outside. I really liked how they continue, like they've really captured, I think, his character because I mean he says, sorry for all the fuss and it's just really sad, because it's like this is this is his death, right? And he's just
Mm.
like apologizing for it. And
It definitely makes you wonder what happens between his wife's cleaning and his. Like, there's this obvious gap, and now we're clearly going to find out, what all of that was. So
Oh, I
it makes
love that we're getting that, honestly, because I was worried we were just going to like see the end of him by like the
yeah,
end of the first episode, and
yeah.
I was like, oh, they're gonna write them out after the first episode, and then I was like,
yeah,
oh no, awesome, there are flashbacks.
Having
yeah.
only read the short story, I was a little afraid of that too, that that was all I was going to see. But again, I don't know anything about like what happens, just sort of.
I don't know if you guys picked up on this on whether it was in the second episode, but did you guys notice the high pitched like almost like a ringing woven throughout the first episode when it was like Holston's point of view? It was like this high pitched like noise.
I think I hear that all the time, so I would have no. You're just like, oh well, maybe. We have this on my campus of where I work. We have a building where we have a septic tank with this little alarm that goes off for like when it rains. Sounds very much like that. So I just hear it all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I live in an apartment that like faces a major road, so I just hear
No,
things all the
Crystal, we
time.
have not. We
Well,
didn't
I have
notice.
tinnitus, so I mean,
I'm gonna
So
listen for it now though, like, if I
Yeah,
go back
so
and watch it again, or if
so
I in the next episode.
yeah, so I'm curious if they only have that woven into like Holston's point of view because I find that really interesting because it would be pretty cool if they were just trying to give you the impression that he's just like living in like a state of like shell shock because that's like the sound that
oh yeah, yeah.
I kind of tie it in with is
There's like
like
a bomb and you can't
yeah,
hear.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the sound that I associate it with is like that like the like things are like fuzzy, but you can hear that ringing.
This makes me feel better about my mental health. Like maybe that wasn't just in my brain.
But yeah, so and then there's Marnes. I really liked how they captured like, you know, how because he's in the books he's a very internal man of few words kind of character, and I think Will Patton like captured that really well, even though he doesn't have a lot of scenes. But yeah, I was really torn up by the way his face was. You know, he was like really like having a hard time holding it together. You know, he looked really emotional when Holston is getting suited up and he's making his walk down. So
Agreed. I think all the secondary and tertiary characters actually have been sort of amazing at conveying things like without a lot of words or any words at all. A lot of
yeah,
great scenes that we've had so far with just looks being exchanged or like one
yeah,
line.
I think it's pretty fun for me because I don't actually know who the main characters are. So I always think it can shift a little bit. That's kind
yeah,
of the feeling I'm getting because I just don't know what's going on. So
yeah. And
and I
actually,
and I feel like it could shift in either direction because you just
yeah, it's kind of funny because when I had asked you what you thought of Bernard, and you're like, "Who's that?"
who is that?
and I was like, "Oh, should I?" But then I thought, "Oh, but it's Tim Robbins, so maybe like it's safe to assume that he's going to be like somebody big." But then I
That's
thought,
always the
"Oh,
problem with like characters for like the actors is like someone I know. I'm like, you're not gonna die yet.
yeah."
Well,
But
but
like,
then
come on.
you see the first episode of this, so I think a lot of viewers are going to be pondering,
Yeah, yeah,
who's in
yeah.
the chopping block, like Game of Thrones style, like is
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone up for
yeah.
grabs?
That's kind of how I feel right now. Is like I feel like any character it could just shift to their like point of view, and I'm like, oh, this is what's going because I don't know what's going on. So
I don't know about you guys, but I found his walk up the ramp a lot scarier than Allison's one, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's because we spent a lot of
well, we saw
time in,
more of it. I think
I guess, but
we
I mean,
saw him hesitate. I don't know that
Yeah.
we saw her hesitate.
I was about to say that the thing that actually made me tense was there was a little bit of time between when they opened the top
Yeah,
and when you see him, or when the people watching see him emerge into the actual environment.
and I was kind of looking for either like a gray or blue reflection on his helmet, and it wasn't really clear what it was. So that was also for me like building tension.
it was interesting to me that they showed him like, you know, looking all over. And actually, I saw this someone mentioned, so it's interesting that they do that because like right now like a lot of people today are talking about like deep fake technology and how scary good it's becoming, and so it's
Right.
like present in a lot of our minds, right? So I thought it was interesting that they put that in because I think back when I read the book it was a little more limited because that wasn't really where the world was at the moment, so it was kind of, yeah, I thought it was interesting that he could look around and see everything, right? So
I thought it was a bit of a nod to his wife too, because when she emerges, she looks around as well, and I kind of
yeah.
thought it was like, he saw her do that, and then he did it too, for obvious reasons, um, as well as like thematically.
So the people watching, like the people down in mechanical, like the down deep, they were watching. I thought this was interesting because in the book there's only one wall screen, but in the show, it's pretty clear that they have more than one wall screen. So I'm guessing they have like cafeterias every so many levels, and like all the cafeterias carry screens and stuff
Yeah, it
like
seems
that.
just to be like a hub. I think
Yeah,
it's where they eat. Maybe I mean they can't feed
yeah,
everyone on one
it's
level.
the
I think they're
cafeteria.
yeah, it's like the cafeteria every so many levels or whatever.
I think that was a really smart choice, honestly, to make like it involves all the characters, and it really like, why wouldn't you have screens where everyone can see so that you see the
Yeah,
stakes of like what's going on outside and what it would mean
yeah.
to tell yourself that, or announce publicly that you want to go out.
Yeah. And especially if like the point of it is to control people, right? And make them understand, you know, like this is why life is the way it is. So it's like
Mhm.
if the people down below couldn't really see it, then I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would be very as effective.
Yeah, it goes back to the pact of like, talking about how they need to stay in.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised when he took off his helmet, and I can't remember what the name of the character is who yelled it, but she said, "Has anyone else ever taken off their helmet?"
Yeah.
But it's like I was kind of surprised by that because like if you're out there and you think you see like you're seeing like blue skies, but then you start having trouble breathing, like would
You
it
know,
would
the first thing that I thought, and like I even thought this before I saw that, is it seemed more like what he was seeing was something that was like simulated inside of his helmet. And I know that sounds weird, but it felt almost like he was taking it off to get rid of something, or that there was like some sort of something in his helmet that he was trying to get away from.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is like what he sees. It looks almost exactly like what we see in Allison's glasses. You know, the cleaning from that George found in the computer in the hard disk.
Yeah. One thing I thought that was interesting though is that the only point of view we saw on, from our side was what everyone in the silo sees and then what he saw from his helmet. We didn't actually see anything about like
What he saw.
what
Hmm.
yeah, the points of view were just very skewed, and it just makes me think that I don't think either of those things were like the truth
Yeah,
They're
possibly.
certainly aiming toward, incorporating that as a mystery. But yeah, it was an interesting line to me as well because yeah, the you also see multiple bodies out there through the
Right.
window, and they also have their helmets on. So it does sort of make you wonder what made him want to do that.
There must have been something that he learned afterward, or I don't know.
actually, now that I think about it, maybe because when they show him looking at the tree is green, it has leaves and everything.
Mhm.
But that is where Allison was. He knows exactly where she is, but in the grass in the greeny thing, she's not there. So
Yeah, so it makes
maybe
me think,
maybe he took off the helmet because he was wondering, maybe she's there if I take off the helmet or
like it
something.
like
I
if
don't know.
what was in his helmet was a simulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it speaks to his like deep desire to figure out what's real. Like obviously Allison had her ideas, everyone else has their ideas, and he had been plagued by this for 3 years. So
Yeah.
it makes sense to me that the first thing he would want to do when he gets out there is to see with his own eyes,
Yeah.
nothing between those and the environment.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about what he's had to battle internally for so long, is like because she had told him in very specific terms what her cleaning meant, right?
Mhm.
But I guess, I mean, he must have had to battle his own fears of whether everything that he's believed in for his entire life and been told is true, or whether what she said is true, and what if she saw what she really saw. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
certainly
truth.
there's an
Yeah.
element of like her like being an unreliable narrator. Like everyone
mhm.
was obviously concerned for her mental health. So that kind of plays into it as like he's probably been wondering for 3 years, like questioning literally everything about what she said, what she thought was real, what he thinks is real, what he's been taught.
Yeah, and actually they make a point of pointing out just how observant he is because there's the whole thing with Jules wearing George's watch because they flash back to him looking at her wrist or
Right.
looking at George's wrist and seeing that watch there. So, yeah, he must be the kind of type of person where you just pick everything apart in your brain over and over and over, right? So I just imagine the hell that he was living in. And then this happened during Allison's cleaning too. When they first start cleaning and then everybody just bursts into like loud cheering. It's like
Yes.
the ups and downs of like the cleaning was pretty interesting because they go from like tense anticipation, like are they going to do it? And then like jubilation.
That's like a real roller coaster.
I
It's like 30
know.
seconds.
And then
Yeah.
the silence is just so like deep.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
right after like they're like overjoyed, like the person dies, right? So and then they have to just stare at that person just dead out there forever.
Forever. And it doesn't seem like there's so many out there. I mean, there's like 4 people out.
Yeah.
I feel like in that time frame there would be many more in a realistic society of people who were just like, I went out,
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of
I
4.
would think, people would probably lose their shit a lot more often.
Right? I would have. It's just like me and my chickens. I can't have my dogs. I'm like stuck in some hellhole down like the 84th floor.
You have to
But
remember from their perspective, though, like, we would feel that way as people who
Who
have
live outside.
who live
yeah, sure,
outside,
sure, yeah.
Crystal over
Yeah.
here with her beautiful scenery, but like they don't know any better. Like that's their
Yeah.
whole life, so it may not feel the
God, they're like
same.
10,000 people, deviancy. I mean, just knowing what I know of people today, Christ. Like, I don't think it could go down as realistically as it is there, but
Okay, so let's talk about like relics and like what we think would actually make a relic. Because why is a Pez dispenser a relic?
How did
is
it
it just
survive?
like stuff you've never seen before? Like stuff that we haven't sanctioned as,
Like, is it because there's a duck on it? Like,
is
is
there
it
an inventory of sanctioned items?
like
I
what
just
was it?
assumed it meant anything that happened before the 140 years ago, or perhaps even before the silo, which I'm not sure has
But I
been
mean,
like
No, yeah,
stated.
it's got to be before the 140 years, because the 140 years is the time of the rebellion. That's not the time
But they could
that
have had
this.
items up until then. Like we don't know like what sort of got prohibited
hmm.
at that
So
moment.
what else did she pull out of that box that
Well,
George
we were
had?
talking last episode that, there was the camcorder and they had no idea
Yeah.
what that was. We were talking about how all of the portraits were painted. There was no photographs. Certainly, they pulled out the camcorder and neither of them had any idea what it was. So I'm assuming the relics are stuff before everything was burned, because otherwise the camcorder wouldn't be such a mystery.
I was thinking that maybe that's Pez specifically because it's a duck. That's just I'm just spitballing.
No, I don't have any idea.
Okay, so there was a camcorder. I'm trying to fast forward to where.
There's also like an element of like uselessness to it. Like, what is a Pez dispenser? What's it used for? It's not like a necessary item. So it makes you wonder, like, because it tends to be that the things you see around are kind of necessary to living. So, like, kind of luxuries aren't abundant.
Hmm. Okay, so I think it kind of looks like a figurine of the Statue of Liberty.
Yes, I saw
Yeah,
that for sure. Yes.
and
Yeah,
then a
that's immediately what I
badminton
thought.
ball. The
Oh
badminton
yeah.
Oh,
badminton is
yeah.
the one with
The
the like the
the
little.
birdie. It's a
Yeah,
birdie.
yeah, 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 yeah. And then is that a seashell?
I remember seeing a seashell. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Huh.
I mean, honestly, it just feels like it's stuff from before something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and anything that would make someone, I feel like, question something that like isn't part of their normal life.
Yeah.
So like things that people when they first moved in, what they brought into the silo. So
I
like,
don't know. I guess.
because like I guess I mean obviously they would bring children, right? People aren't gonna like move into a silo, leave their kids upside, right?
I don't know. Like maybe like 100 people moved in, and it was just like a breeding epidemic. I don't know how this all started. Honestly, I don't know. Of anything. How do you get to 10,000 people in 140
I
years?
hope
Anyway.
we get far enough along that that sort of stuff is that we dive into it.
The important things.
We're not gonna be in any silo. We're little peons.
I got a bunker. I'm okay.
I think there's an important aspect to this too, as to what's sort of considered a relic or considered prohibited, because clearly Allison was starting to stumble upon this idea of like, oh, things are being kept from people, things are
Mm.
being suppressed, things are being hidden. And so like when you think about the types of stuff you might want to prohibit, like a camcorder immediately comes to mind, like something you can record evidence with, something you could give to someone easily and communicate with. Like there's no communication that's easy in the silo. There's why, like, you wonder, why don't they have phones? Like why do
Yeah.
they carry notes? Like, and
Well,
obviously there's something playing into it about
kind of the control
Well,
that
Crystal
is
and I
going
were
on.
talking in the last episode about whether or not everyone had a computer in their apartment to let them know. They were looking at the computer to find out that his wife was eligible, to get
Yeah,
pregnant.
we weren't sure if everybody had one or if he had one because he was a sheriff.
Right. But then
Yeah.
everyone seemed to know that they had been granted this privilege, and they were congratulating them. What seemingly in the show seemed like immediately.
Yeah,
So
I
wondering
could
what kind
buy
of
that everyone has a
communication.
computer. I
Yeah.
could also buy, though, that the computer is very highly regulated for what it
Yeah,
gets.
Of
Like,
yeah.
almost
course.
in like a 1984, like, oh, the TV only shows you what we want it to
Yeah, they
kind of
didn't
way.
seem to be able to change what was on the screen, to be honest. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they kind of touch on it with that little scene with Bernard, that he's like, he just goes in and deletes shit as he pleases, right?
yeah,
So I feel like, yeah, the people watching and controlling, they can just, like, they can have this silo mail system, but whatever you're getting is only what they want you to get, right? So,
right.
Exactly.
but actually, I wanted to mention that's actually ties into the title of the podcast is communication in the silo are called wires in the book. So that's where the title's from, wires from the down deep. So
Speaking of communication, something else that really stuck out to me from this episode as really important was why Juliet hides half the note.
yeah, what was this part that she hid?
It said I found what I was looking for.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
first half was remember where you were when you
Where
last
you
saw
saw
this.
this. Yeah, that was for the Pez, right?
But
then
I
she
found
took
what I
it
was
in.
looking for doesn't sound like something you'd necessarily want to hide. So what was she hiding with
Well, I
that?
mean, there was that scene where they were, being all lovey-dovey in the
Yeah, yeah,
bed,
yeah.
and she kept asking him, like, what are you looking for? And he
Yeah,
kind of put it off, and they were, and
Hmm.
just joking, like, oh, I'll tell you. I don't remember what he said. I'll tell you
no,
something.
he actually does say what it is. Like he says, I think it's a door.
Oh, that's right, a door.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Which,
then
remember they showed the map with the tunnel?
yeah,
Or was
Yeah.
it
so
He
he
says, "What is this?"
Mhm.
yeah, so I had like been trying to put together like chronologically how everything happened because it's like I said before, it was really
Yeah.
confusing with all the jumps. So Allison meets George. They go through the hard drive, and he sees the blueprints, right, with like
Right.
the silo from the side, and then a
Mhm.
tunnel,
Mhm.
and then
Which was
after
on the
that,
bottom, right?
Yep.
yeah,
It was at the very bottom.
yeah, and then after that, he transfers to mechanical, presumably after Allison dies.
But there must be
And
a reason why he
I think
transferred to mechanical.
it's because of what he saw. He saw that
Right.
there's a
That's
tunnel
what I
down there, so
mean.
he wanted to be closer.
Yeah.
So, and then he goes and he finds that cavern.
Yeah.
He meets Juliet. He gets together with her, and they start their relationship or their secret relationship. And then he shows her that cavern, and he builds that little cavern house or whatever. And then he's murdered, and then Holston is part of it, and then Holston cleans. So yeah, that's why like I was so confused. Is there's
Mm.
so many different events at various parts of the two episodes, and they're like jumping all over the place. So, but I think that's chronologically what happens.
I think so.
But I guess wait, so he found it though. Like they're implying. I mean, she says he was murdered, but she doesn't know who, right?
Right.
So I guess that's what's got to come. That's what's probably going to be in the next episode.
I hope so, at least.
So I started getting like at a certain point like a police procedural feel to the show, just because they were investigating a murder,
Mhm.
and that's why we named this episode "Only Murders in the Silo." It's actually based on a show that me and Angela like called "Only Murders in the Building," and I
Which is also about podcasting, so it's
yes, it's about
perfect.
podcasting. Yeah, it's pretty funny. But yeah, I told my husband the title, and he just slapped his forehead.
Hey, at least he knows what you're talking about.
Okay, so one more thing I want to touch on, because during the watch party, a couple of people were complaining about this, is Jules's accent. So I can hear her because had to look it up, and she's Swedish, but I think she speaks with a British accent in Dunes. And I haven't really looked at a lot of interviews with her. Do either of you know what kind of accent she
Wait,
speaks in
who are we
normally?
talking about? The girl that plays Juliet?
Juliet, yeah, Rebecca
Woman?
Ferguson.
I see. I do
Yeah,
not
because
know.
like in that scene with George, I could hear like she sounded British.
I think a
So
lot of the accents for the characters, for the actors are coming through. Like Holston's actor, whose name I'm completely blanking on, also sometimes his accent comes through, and Johns's actress, like I get the same thing from her.
You'd think after that long in a silo, like so many accents would be much more. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah, no, I mean
it's like the Tower of Babel. I feel like
it's
it's like
certainly the
you
actors
get,
trying,
of
and
course,
maybe
yeah, of
not
course, but
being
it's just funny.
100% on it. But yes, it's
Yeah,
funny because I thought the same thing while watching it. Like in my mind, I was like, they would all sound the same.
yeah. And I was laughing with Crystal because the woman that plays Johns was also the actress in Anne with an E, who's it's like this Anne of Green Gables show set in Nova Scotia, and she has this like very Nova Scotian accent, and
And
I
she's British normally, and
yeah,
I think she's a
it's
stage actress
she's
normally.
so lovely. I love her so much, but you always catch these, intonations from her. It's so cute.
it's kind of funny that you both say that you think that they would all sound the same. But for me, I guess I just thought that there would be noticeable dialects even within the silo, just because, like for instance, in Hawaii, like people from different islands have different accents, and we're just one state, so
Yeah, no,
I guess.
and that makes sense to me. But I mean, I feel like they must have started with far fewer people in such a
Uh-huh.
gigantic place. If they have 10,000 now, I mean, that's a really small number. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess in my imagination, I would say that.
They'd be
I
like similar, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that the main differences might not come so much in accents as like diction, or like kind of like how you speak, or what
Yeah.
words you
Maybe.
choose, like what concepts you might be familiar with, that sort of thing.
But
But I think
see,
it's a little bit of both.
like I agree with that. Like I felt like the people in the down deep, like the mechanical people, I felt like they were speaking kind of in a a more rougher dialect, but I didn't feel like Jules was talking like that. She kind of sounded a little more like up topish. You
So
know what I mean?
maybe I've just forgotten. But so it's been like 144 years since the rebellion. Do we know how long they've been in the silo? Is that a secret? Like, because for
Well,
me that is a complete, like, that
I think
changes everything.
I think they make a point of saying that they don't know anything before
Right.
the rebellion, because Johns is in her office and she's telling Marnes, I have all these
Right.
books
Okay.
here
Yeah.
and I don't have anything from before. I
Well,
don't
so that
under
changes everything. Like if they've been there for 20,000. You know what I mean? Like it's just
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
I
guess.
actually yeah, I don't they definitely haven't told us how long before the 140 years they've been there, but I did think about it extensively, especially during the first episode, because they have Allison and Holston have that quilt on their wall,
Mm,
and I was like, what 26 is it?
yeah,
Is it
yeah.
2126? Is it 3026?
I thought it was a nice touch that the day of their wedding anniversary is May 5th, which is
oh
the day that the show
yeah.
started. Yeah,
Mm.
that was kind of cool. It's a nice touch. But yeah, like somebody
It's
in
a confident touch. You never know.
well, maybe they could have digitally altered it, right?
Yeah, of
So
course.
since we were talking about Johns, I wanted to mention I was so happy that they showed her knitting, but like she had like ginormously fat knitting needles.
When I saw that, I thought of you because I didn't remember her knitting in the first episode. I was like, she must have remembered it from the second.
Yes, I literally like pointed to the screen. It was like, look, to my husband, like she's knitting, and then I was
Behold,
like,
she knits.
And then she said, "Oh, I used to be able to make 25 of these a year." I was like, "Whoa!"
Oh, bless her.
yeah, and
I
like
have 25 unfinished blankets.
I have a few
only
myself.
25.
Yeah, only 25. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how many, but I they flash on like she's like pouring through like a notebook, which I assumed was a knitting pattern, but it didn't look like any knitting
It
pattern.
was one of those books from the shelves on the wall, right? It
Oh,
was
is
a
that what it
record.
was?
It looked like she
Oh,
was looking
so
through
she
a
was
record.
reading.
She
She
Yeah.
was
was
like
reading.
rows of little text, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
she said they only go back so far, and then she was like, I wonder if they kept them before.
Okay. Yeah, I totally misinterpreted. I thought she was like looking at
You
her
thought it was
knitting
a knitting
pattern.
pattern.
Yeah.
Crystal. It wasn't. She's got that shit
Okay.
memorized.
So she's basically doing what I do, which is watch Netflix and knit at the same
Hmm.
time. She's reading.
Nothing
Got it.
courageous.
Got it. So let's go back to the cavern. How did they get down there?
There was a ladder. It was really rusty. I felt really, it was
No,
unsafe.
It was nerve inducing.
well,
Like
like
140 years till the
before,
rebellion. Before that, who knows how long. It's a ladder that's like attached to the rocks by nothing. I would not climb down that.
no, but they had to go past a sign first. Like, she moved a sign
Yeah,
away
she
from
like
a
lifted it off the
tunnel.
wall. It wasn't very secure.
Yeah. I guess so. George found that and showed her, and then so the little hut thing that was at the bottom, or did they climb down there to go look at something else?
No, the hut was at the semi bottom, and the ladder down was to the.
Was past that, right?
Yeah, it was past that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they went down there to look at the artifacts, the relics in the box that she'd had down there. So, but what he was looking for, with a rope, that was what was further south.
Okay.
South.
That digger kind of reminded me of like the machines in the Matrix.
A little, yeah.
Yeah, I got
also,
some Stranger Things vibes from it.
It was very. I got a huge spider vibe from it. So.
Oh yeah, what was that creature called?
In Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Shit.
Like the Mind Flayer.
Oh yeah, Mind Flayer. That's what it was. Yeah.
I know the monsters kept getting like next level, and I lost track of what they were called.
And then so each of the legs had like those giant drill bits on them, and they kind of look like the ones from Armageddon, which I thought was really fun because I really like that movie, and that's like what Will Patton is. Will Patton's in that movie. Yeah, that whole thing is huge. Well, at least it's not a rope ladder they're climbing down or anything. It just looks like steel or iron or something.
That from like who knows how many years ago.
Yeah, it could be like 3,000.
So, actually that makes me think about, since we're talking about this big cavernous space, I kind of liked how I was telling Kay, I kind of liked how big the scale of the silo is, and I kind of like how much space they have, but at the same time, like I didn't understand why some of the inner hallways are so wide and so big. Because like when Allison is walking around,
Yeah,
she's like going downstairs and going through hallways, and
I
like
guess
think
like maybe
she's,
they never had any idea how big or not the population would grow.
I guess, but it just seems like they would
Vast.
allocate more space toward
Corn.
living quarters than
Chickens.
corridors, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I actually thought
Yeah.
even the living quarters were too large too, though. I was like,
They were very
Allison and
spacious.
Holston's
Yeah,
apartment was huge.
Yeah, I just assume that's because he's the sheriff, but
But
that might be true.
yeah, because they show Gloria's apartment and hers is noticeably smaller, right?
But even still, it's larger than I thought it would be for like one
Yeah.
person. Like I was expecting these sort of like
pods.
like 300 square feet, everything's stacked up. You have a bunk bed over your desk, sort of like style, like dorms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys noticed, but it looked like Holston and Allison had a sofa bed.
A sofa bed.
Yeah, because if you look at certain parts where they're lying down in bed, it looks like to the left and right of them are like the arms of a sofa.
Well,
That's what it
they're
looks
not
like to
using
me.
their space efficiently because that was a huge apartment.
Yeah, like the kitchen was insane, like with the table in the middle of it.
They have a fucking cafeteria. They don't cook. They go every day for all their meals, at least what I saw, to the cafeteria.
Yeah.
What are you in the kitchen
And
for?
they actually they had like a living herb garden in their apartment too. It was like at their foyer.
Yeah,
like,
okay. I do too at my foyer. It's like half dead. I don't eat that shit. It's
the cells and the whole area of like where the sheriff is too also seemed like really huge to me. I was like, how often are there people in these cells anyway? Like why
and there's at least 3 of them because he was in the third.
Yeah, he was in holding
who were all these people?
Yeah, or like where they're all working, like the deputies and stuff. I'm like, this room is huge and the desks are all spread out. Like I would expect it, like a really nice, like tech office in San Francisco or something.
Yeah, even Holston's like private office it's pretty big too. And John's, she has like a whole
She's like the Oval
sitting
Office.
area. Yeah.
But we love your show. So
Yes.
This is
I
just
mean,
what
like,
this
it's
is
just
just what
funny.
fans do. We just pick apart everything, right? That goes with the territory.
yeah, and like I said earlier, I think some of it's also just for filming. Like, obviously, you need
Sure.
certain amounts of space to make things look like appropriate for a screen and whatnot. So it's like, when they film in airplanes and stuff, and you just can tell it's not a
Yeah.
real airplane.
Yeah. So actually, Hugh did a AMA on Reddit, I think, yesterday,
Yeah,
and
yesterday.
someone asked why they changed the staircase from metal to concrete, and he said it was for acoustics reasons, that like they wouldn't be able to have everybody going up and down, and the sound would catch on all the mics and everything, which I thought was interesting. So
I think that's a really weird question. Like, I read a book, I would never. I mean, maybe it's important. I haven't read the books. I have no idea, but
They make a point of talking about how they are metal. They
okay.
talk about the grading on
the
them and things
diamond
like that.
pattern
Yeah.
on it,
So
yeah.
Okay.
so it's
Okay.
very obvious that they're kind
Like,
of these
oh
narrow
no.
metal stairs.
Yeah. Sure.
I think it's because the book opens with Holston with a very heavy heart is walking to the top, and he's like staring at the steps as he
Yeah. Okay.
walks.
All
So
right. All
yeah,
right. Yeah.
I think that's just a detail that people fixate on because it was so immersive, in his point of
Mm.
view. So yeah,
Yeah, weirdly, that detail didn't actually bother me, and it still doesn't. Like, obviously, I'm hung up on like the other stuff.
yeah. I
So it's
don't.
kind of
Yeah,
funny what people kind of decide is important to them in like an adaptation.
yeah. So there was this poster on Reddit who was extremely upset about how they cut the episodes without revealing like everything that he was upset about. He was just really mad that they didn't cut it exactly how the book is.
I will admit,
And
I did think they were going to cut it exactly how the book was. I thought the first episode would end differently, so I don't know that I would be angry about it, but I was
yeah,
kind of shocked when we got to the end of the first episode and it ended without Holston
Did
singing.
you?
yeah,
Okay, so that's what I was wondering because the only thing that I had read is the short story, and I think that's where the short story ends is with his cleaning.
It does, yes.
So that's why I expected it to end too.
but see, so I wanted to talk about it though because I feel like it's a valid point for a book fan is that book fans were like, I think the experience reading it was very different for some than most books because it has a really good twist. And like for me, like when I read the short story, I was like, wow, this is awesome. I was pretty sick of all the bland things that I was reading, so I was really taken aback. So I can't. I feel like that's a fair point that people want that to be preserved and like put on screen, but I also feel like the show has to stand on its own, so it has to like try to do different things. And so like because people can see so much more and hear so much more, and just the whole experience with the added music and everything is just it's different. And I feel like you can't always have like literal page to screen, you
Yeah,
know.
viewership matters too, and how you entice viewers. Like, as editors, we know that everything needs a good hook, and if
Yeah.
you ended Holston's story more neatly
Mm.
at the end of the first episode, I think it wouldn't have created a great hook for making people sort of press play on the next one or let the autoplay run or whatever.
Yeah, because it might have felt too contained, right? People could have been like,
Exactly.
"Oh yeah, I mean, it's at the end. That was good."
Yeah, and I just really think that reading a book and watching something on the television, they're just two completely different experiences, and you're always going to have to come at them with different angles. And
Yeah, and like something I pointed out to that person was, you know, they're gonna want to give book fans a new experience too, because I mean, if you just replicate what happened in the book, I mean, that's good on one hand, but at the same time, you wanna, surprise viewers too. I want to be surprised, watching the show too.
mm,
I don't. I want new things thrown at me because, like Allison, like for example, Allison's what did they call it? Reproductive what? I can't remember.
clearance, maybe
Yeah,
something.
something like that. Like the whole thing about her not being allowed, like they're not telling her, but they're not allowing her to have kids.
Oh yeah,
Like that wasn't part of like her wanting to go out. So that was new, but I really liked the addition of that because I felt like that added more to her desire to go outside. It's because she was so like upset about like the idea of the level of
Right.
control that they had over her.
You know, they mentioned something in this episode that I hadn't heard before, and they talked about a sanctioned relationship, like being in a sanctioned relationship. So it didn't seem like the two main characters, Juliet and I'm sorry, the other guy's name,
George.
George.
I'm sorry, yes. It didn't seem like they were in they weren't having an affair. It just seemed like they were,
not like official.
They weren't official. Like they weren't, someone hadn't signed paperwork so that they could be together privately or something. I don't know. It was very strange. So
no, I think that's the impression that I got. Like, they have to like get permission
before
on
they
paper.
can even
because
anything, right? How else do you control population in such a small place? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so like it's just up the ante for like the control that they hold over these people, right?
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to live in a silo.
God, no.
Definitely not.
Nope.
But speaking of that, Angela, where do you think you would work in the silo?
Oh, me? I'm definitely an IT person. I am a book editor now and an author, but I actually come from a decade in tech, being a software developer. So
you'd work under Bernard.
Definitely. I might even be an Allison type who's like too curious for her own good.
So Kelly had said she's going to work in the chicken area.
Chicken farmer, that would be me, as far away from people as humanly possible. Just like, got my chickens. Crystal, we talked about like no pets, right? Whether or not I have 2 dogs, my poodles. What would I do?
And I have 3 cats. I'm not sure I'd want to take them with me anyway, though, necessarily.
But like, no pets. Like I think pets are like such a human, like, just people have pets. There's such a like, I can't imagine anyone living in.
I think they do mention like rodents as pets in the book. But yeah, like why would you
like the little princess?
Why when you're like building your like Noah's bunker or whatever, why
would you befriending the cockroaches, right?
I just assume that's the type of thing that would like get in anywhere. Like they probably didn't want to introduce rodents or cockroaches or bugs.
Well, cockroaches are what cockroaches apparently would just survive like nuclear war. Like they're indestructible. Like seriously, like.
Yeah, and then one would scuttle in after like the first cleaning somehow and like, live in the corridor forever.
It's all over.
Well, I mean, they do flame the airlock, so come on, can a roach?
Where does all the oxygen come from? That? I kept feeling that there should be more plants, like the shade-loving spider plants or whatever you hang in your bathroom.
Well, I mean, they have all the corn, right? They show the cornfields and stuff.
Like,
is that enough though? I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe that's why they have that herb garden in there. It's for breeding.
Maybe it's weed. Just like, whatever.
I found myself weirdly obsessed with details like that too, though. Like I found myself thinking like that the corridor, like the stairs going up to the outside after the airlock. I was like, who changes the lighting in there? Like, is that is that like exposed to the outside? Like all these tiny little things. I found myself like kind of not annoyed about, but like that would like burrow into my mind.
I feel like I saw cameras up that ramp too, because there were like red lights on like the ceiling and the walls and stuff. So I think those were cameras, because I think they showed like a reddish looking thing when Holston looked back at the camera. So that's why I thought it was.
Well, they had that recording from, I don't know, the relic, with the blue sky and everything. So there must be other cameras, because from the inside it doesn't look like that. Where did they get the blue sky recording from?
I think that recording was from a lady that they sent out to clean, because when they clicked on the file, it had a name. It was like Jane Carmody.
Yeah, I thought that was a helmet feed.
Yeah,
but then where do the helmet feeds go now?
Good question.
I don't know.
Like who sees them?
We'll probably find out. Maybe
we'll find out.
Maybe in like season 8. I don't know.
I don't know anything. Crystal?
What? No, I don't know.
What do you know?
We wouldn't say even if we did.
That's okay. Don't tell me. I'm intrigued.
You can tell there's a lot to talk about since we're like so far into this and we're still just talking.
I know, we're at like 55 minutes already.
I was really afraid when we started this that I wouldn't have anything to say, but gosh, I've taken notes. And you have to understand, I don't do any of this anymore. It's like,
I have never done this. This is my first podcast. I don't
really?
even I've
Oh,
never
that's
even
so
listened
exciting.
to a podcast.
I don't listen to them either.
Yeah, she told me she had never heard a podcast before, and I was
I
like, "What are
haven't.
you talking about? You watch Only Murders in the Building."
No, I
That's
just,
true. I guess I've heard like bits of a fictional podcast, but like I've never turned on a
yeah,
podcast myself.
this is just something I do with Crystal when she asked me to do it.
Trying to scroll through. The ending part of the show is so dark; it's hard to see.
I
Agreed.
always think that too. Yeah.
Yeah, we watch them. We tend to watch. So most Apple TV shows come out on Fridays, so we tend to have like lazy Friday mornings before work where we watch a bunch of Apple TV shows, and our entire living room is just windows. It's all windows.
Yeah,
So it's like a
Oh,
corner of windows, and it's just so hard for some
yeah.
shows, and Silo is one of them.
Yeah, I'm in the Pacific Northwest and my west wall is windows basically. And that's like my television is on the east side, so the light just comes in the evening. And but there's nowhere else to put my television, so I'm always finding that every show is just too something and I can't ever quite.
Yeah, I think we'll be switching this one to like evening viewing, and even then, it's coming up on summer, so it's like it's going to be bright until like
Yeah.
8 or 9 or whatever. I live in the Northeast in the Boston area.
Yeah. I just watched this last episode on my laptop and it was way better honestly, so I might just continue doing that. You just pick up more detail, like what's on the wall and who's that in the background. I can't see that when I'm like trying to watch television from my
I
couch.
love that
So
for this show too, because I do feel like, I mean, as much as I complain about some of the aspects of the Silo, like I do
mm.
think they did a really good job on like the
details. Yeah.
production quality and
Yeah,
the
I noticed
production
that
values of like the details of the grittiness and things like that.
I noticed that way more in the second episode just because I think I could see more from my
I
laptop. So
even think they did a really good job, like the makeup crew of like kind of making different people with different jobs kind of look different, and like
yeah.
kind of the ruggedness that you might get on your skin from like working in mechanical or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, I wanted to talk about Juliet's tattoos. Those are
Oh
tattoos,
yeah.
right? She had
Yes.
like swirling
There was
lines on her
there was
shoulder.
one really short scene where there was an older woman tattooing a woman who was just like
Oh, yeah, yeah,
covered.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
very brief, but I caught that too. It was
Yeah,
cool.
Juliet's are interesting because she has, yeah, like she has like a sleeve of like these kind of curvy lines, but she
Swirls.
also has
Yeah.
other things too where she has like these straighter
Yeah,
lines.
she has like a slash going across the back of her fingers, right?
Yeah, and like I think a wrist-ish thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot
Yeah.
going on there.
Yeah. I'm kind
I
of
don't
curious
recall
what.
if this was mentioned in the books or anything, so like there's I've kind of been kind of trying to remember and take this like and kind of interpret what it might mean.
Mm-hmm. I will say, out of nowhere, I did like the speech that the mayor gave that said that it was important for the members of the silo to see her like walking the 144 levels. So like people need to see their mayor. I really liked that she thought that that would just like inspire people. And
I feel so bad for her because she's she's
I know
elderly, right?
how is she gonna walk 100? But that's what I mean. Like, I mean that's what that will cost her, but it still
Yeah.
seemed like
Yeah.
it was important to her. So.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, what it will cost her, because yeah, like
Yeah,
you
I
can't
don't even like, is she gonna
I
make
mean,
it back up? I don't know.
yeah, because I mean it takes a day to walk down.
Yeah, see,
Shit.
yeah, right? I
And
know.
she looks like she's in her 80s, so
She's not gonna is she gonna make it all the way? Maybe that's the whole plot
'cause
line of
I
the
mean
show is like, does she make it to the bottom and back
'cause
up?
yeah, 'cause there's coming back up, right? I mean,
Right?
which is
That's
There's no
way
probably
harder.
elevator.
twice
There's
as
no
hard.
donkeys.
Have a porter carry her up, please.
No, yeah, like, just some guy with a wheelbarrow could make them some credits or whatever they have and wheel her back
Actually,
up.
they should let her go to the bottom on the slide.
Oh my I think they took apart the slide, but if that was an everyday, imagine the speed
I know.
and the danger.
That's probably dangerous too for a senior.
It's like the lottery. You either make it or you don't. It's
Yeah.
population control.
Okay,
And
so in the watch party, okay, so at the end of the episode, like, did you guys like how they ended episode 2? Like she comes to a stop over the water.
I think it's a great hook for the next episode, although, yeah, I don't know. Is
I
Yeah,
kind of like. I kind of wish they had kept that it was water, like, cause like, you know how I talked about how you could see it shimmering. Like, I think I figured out that it was water, and she must have known too, right? Or do you think that she didn't know until she
I think
was
she
almost
knew.
falling to the bottom?
so right before the end of this episode, I've written in my notes, and I don't remember what it means. Maybe you can help me. A door.
A
And then
door.
a deal. What was the deal? No, help me. Don't laugh. Help me. There
Yeah,
was a door and there was a deal.
Deal.
And then I also wrote that I noticed that she was like, when she was sliding down the rope, she was like panning back and forth with her flashlight on her head. And I didn't know if she was like looking for a door or if she was like seeing things or if she was just, if that was the motion that was like carrying her down the rope.
When we were watching with the watch party, people were like, "Oh my god, she needs to be wearing gloves. Her hands would like be like,
Blistered.
yeah, or no, like totally rope burn, right?" So,
Yeah.
oh yeah, she does have a headlamp. So does it fall off her head? I
Yeah,
thought
but
she.
yeah,
like,
it
but at
does.
first she's like doing this like back and forth motion, like she's looking for
She
something.
she's definitely trying to see what's down there, I think, with the headlamp.
Yeah, but it does fall off into the water. And then there's way too much light considering there should be none, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I've gone outside with one of those headlamps on like my
Otherwise we
driveway.
couldn't see, right?
You can't see
I don't
anything.
know.
But yeah, I mean, for us, we can tell it's water. I feel like. So is that what it is? Like she didn't know that it was water until she got down there and it fell in, and she heard the plop, and she's freaking out. It looks like she's like shaking when
I
she
don't
gets.
really know. I mean,
Maybe I
what
feel
was
like.
the conversation earlier where she said that she couldn't, like
They
when we were
talked
talking?
about water earlier,
Yes,
right?
that's what
So
I
she
mean. Yeah.
clearly knew there was like something going on with water down there.
Because like she couldn't swim or like she hadn't been like submerged in water before. So
So how do you think? Me and Kelly had talked about how they don't seem to be very careful with their water usage because that lady Gloria just like turns on the faucet
yeah,
and
like
she's
where did
just.
like they're just gonna run the water? Like where does that come from? It's like white noise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that too. I was like, "Oh, Allison's just like running the water." And then I said this to Crystal earlier too that like when they're writing on paper, there's just so much like wasted paper. Like when Allison and George are
Yeah,
like scribbling down
I
notes and I'm like,
know.
"Why wasn't it all written like really tightly and neatly together?"
Yeah. Yeah, when he comes home and she's waiting for him, having dug the birth control out, like she had no idea what time he was coming home, but the water's running. Like she could have been sitting there for like
Oh,
45 minutes, you know, it's like,
that's what you guys are talking about. I thought you guys were like talking about Gloria, but yeah, now that you say that, I remember she had the
yeah.
water running when he came home.
That's all those things. Yeah,
Yeah, it's just things where it's like it's one of those things where I know she was sort of out of it like mentally and I know that they were sort of like excited and stuff, but these are the type of things that I just think would be so ingrained in people because it's their entire lives of like
Yeah,
knowing
yeah,
about the constraints on
conserving
these
water. Yeah.
resources. Yeah.
yeah. And like I was telling Kelly, like you would think that they would like have like monitors on like how long the tap is
Oh,
on.
rations or
Or, yeah,
something, you
like
know?
maybe like their pipes are only connected to like a limited supply under their sink or something, you know, not
Yeah.
like connected plumbing throughout the whole
But
silo
but
that you
I
could
mean,
just use at your whim.
it seems to be very lavish. I mean, they have, you know, these floors, everyone's selling, you know, buns and bread. I mean, where's the there seems to be waste. There's certainly a surplus
Yes,
of food. Like,
those were steamed buns, which did occur to
Yeah.
me that it was a very wasteful way to do
yeah,
anything
right?
because
Like there's
heat is actually probably an abundant resource that they have way too much of, but like steam seems like it would be a complete waste of water.
Yeah.
and it was very, very pointedly steamed buns, you know.
And I
Yeah.
was wondering about the currency too, because like what would
Credits,
something,
yeah.
yeah, credits, like
To have
what
a
would,
page printed, like
yeah,
how
and like how much would like a steamed bun or a pretzel cost? And because like it sounds like, I mean, that lady, that mechanic made it sound like 10 credits is kind of a lot of money, right? She's like,
Mhm.
you bet 10 credits on that? Or am
Yeah.
I misinterpreting that?
No,
Because
no,
I
I
mean,
agree
No,
with you. I'm
I
just
got that
thinking.
too.
because like, I mean, for
How
us
they
today, like,
even track it? Is it like a paper money? Is it a card? Is it a scan? And if that's 10, how much could a steamed bun cost? You know?
yeah, exactly. Like, how do you break that down even more? I mean, I
Hmm.
And
mean,
then you wonder about like I kind of wondered about the food in general because I was like, wait, so
yeah, is the cafeteria free? Do you pay for that? What food do
Mm.
you pay for versus kind of what's given to you, or what, yeah, like what do you get kind of allotted to you or
It's probably an
whatever?
HOA.
I know, right?
It's funny. I kind of wanted to go back and look at that cafeteria because when Holston and Allison, Kelly, you're talking about how like
Mm.
everybody knew that they won the lottery.
So
So like,
fast.
yeah, they were like walking through like the cafeteria like food line at that point. So I went to go back and look at what they were serving because in the book the food that they ate was generally pretty plain, like closer to like
I
raw
don't
food.
remember
Like,
seeing any food. I
they're-
honestly don't.
well, I mean
She was they
they
were
had
serving out food.
yeah they had I know
No, I'm
Angela
sure it
has.
was food. It's like I don't. I have no memory of it.
No, but like I think in the book it was like gruel and hot oatmeal and corn and tomatoes and
Ew.
just more like very like
Slop.
plain, not like recipes kind of food. Just like here's your slop and here's your vegetable.
I very much enjoyed the message I got the other day from Crystal, which was, Angela, is this an espresso machine? And Crystal, linked me a picture, a screen cap of I think what at the time was the trailer.
It was
Because
a
I'm a huge
trailer.
coffee person and a huge espresso person. And I was like, oh my, that actually is an espresso machine. That's amazing.
Not a
It's like a
relic.
dystopian espresso machine.
But yeah, so they have pretzels and Angela. I was telling Kelly that I spotted pink cotton candy, and I was just like, cotton candy seems kind of like frivolous,
Yeah, very indulgent.
Yeah.
Unless it was supposed to be for I actually don't recall that scene. Was it for like the Freedom Day or whatever?
Freedom
Like
Day,
maybe it
yeah.
was a festival
Oh,
thing?
yeah, maybe. Yeah, actually, I think that was when Allison was walking around. So yeah,
But
maybe
still, I
because
mean, they seem to be doing quite well. That's what I mean. Like,
yeah, I mean, not to like nitpick, but like it's pink. I mean,
They had to color it somehow.
yeah, they had to
Yeah.
color it somehow. So is that? I mean, that just seems like a very high level like
yeah,
indulgent kind of
I
thing,
just,
Yeah, or something that would have just been lost over time, like the idea of like food coloring.
Yeah, because like I was telling Kelly, like we just got a cotton candy machine, and it's like the small one that we have in our kitchen, and I had forgotten.
Now I hear chickens.
oh my God, I'm so sorry. You could hear that. Oh my God.
It's amazing, actually.
she, she's already at work in the silo.
Shut up.
But
Sorry. He's either laid an egg or is laying an egg. It's real life. This would be my job in the silo.
it's okay. We won't be able to hear it on the recording.
Okay.
Now she's gonna scream louder though. But so we have the cotton candy machine, and I didn't read the instructions or the product page very well, so I didn't know that it didn't come with sugar, the colored sugar. So I read that I can just use regular sugar. So we've just been making like plain white cotton candy.
Tastes the same.
So yeah, so I don't know, the color thing just kind of like it's like a little nitpicky thing that bothers me because it just seems like if you're like happy enough to just have something like that, something special like that, would you
Mm.
even go so far as to color it pink? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like for me, it just depends on. It's hard to get a grasp of how the community has developed, how well off they feel they are, like the atmosphere. If you're happy, what is happy? If you
Yeah.
have the extra and you can make it pink, maybe you just would for fun. But I don't know if that would like last 200 or more years.
Yeah.
Coloring the cotton candy.
Although, where do you think they get their sugar from? They must get it from the corn, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's the cheapest and greatest way.
So, any final thoughts? Because we're getting to be
Very
hour
long.
10. We're
We
getting
really loved episode 2.
You're gonna have to.
Yeah. So, despite all our nitpicking, obviously we have a lot to talk about, which means that we enjoy it. So,
Yes, I did enjoy it.
because if I didn't like it, I
I would have
I
pieced out, and it would have been the Crystal and Angela show.
Oh yeah, I think definitely talking this much,
You're doing
even
great.
nitpicking things, expresses love.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that about wraps it up. We wanted to thank Angela for coming on the show. We hope you had a good time talking to us, Angela.
Definitely, it was a really great time.
Okay, so and with that, thank you for joining us for another episode of Wires from the Deep. Be sure to follow us or subscribe on your podcasting platform of choice and join the Down Deep Discord so that you can discuss with other fans. Tune in for our next episode, and we're going to break down episode 3, Machines. Thank you for listening.
Bye, everyone.